In this video, we'll be showing you how to install our 24 Wrangler Stage 3 audio system on select 2024 and newer Jeep Wrangler JL. Welcome back, guys. I'm Eric, and today we'll be installing a Rockford Fosgate audio system on a 2024 Jeep Wrangler 4-door Rubicon X 4xe with premium audio. Note that some of the features or installation methods may be different on your model. However, nearly all the installation steps will be the same. Now, with all Rockford Fosgate kits, we design for a plug-and-play install. However, we consider this a 5 out of 5 wrench installation purely based on the amount of vehicle disassembly and reassembly. Now, if you're hesitant, we highly recommend contacting your local authorized Rockford Fosgate dealer to install your system. Now, to make things easier, we suggest a parts bin and labels to organize the OEM screws as we disassemble, along with some specialty tools such as a 90-degree drill, a 90-degree hand driver, an assortment of Phillips bits and extensions, a scoop panel puller, a 7mm wrench and sockets, and a compact ratchet set. On our Wrangler, we have power seats. So we'll slide the seat forward until you can remove both rear bolts using a T50 Torx. Now, once that's done, slide the seat back so you have access to remove the front bolts once the power is disconnected. All right, now that we covered that, let's jump right into the install. We'll start by disconnecting grounds from the primary and the start-stop battery using a 10mm socket. Depending on your configuration, you may have 2 large cables on the negative or 1 large cable on the primary battery and 1 large cable on the ground lug. Be sure to remove the positive terminals as well. All right, now we're ready to disassemble the rear cargo area. We'll first remove the crossbar trim panel. Next, slide out the cargo cover and the cargo tray. Then, we decouple the T-strap hold downs with the pry tool and remove the 3 bolts with the T40 Torx. Once you're done, you'll remove 1 T27 screw holding the front of the premium subwoofer enclosure in place. Then we'll detach the seatbelt trim and remove the subwoofer enclosure. Be sure to detach the subwoofer harness. Finally, remove the front carpet piece. All right, now we're ready to disassemble the tailgate. Start by using a pry tool to remove the center trim panel. Next, we'll remove the entire tailgate panel from the Jeep. Note, if any of the retainer clips get stuck, be sure to use some needle nose pliers to remove them and reattach them to the panel. All right, now we're ready to remove the rear seat trim panel. Using a T27 Torx, remove 2 screws holding the panel in place. Next, remove the rubber floor mats and remove the trim panel from the Jeep. All right, we're making progress, and now we're ready for the upper dash. Start by covering the radio with a microfiber cloth. Then remove the rubber inserts from the panel. Next, remove 4 center screws using a 7mm socket. Detach the panel starting from the back side. Now, once you have it detached, disconnect the harness. Once that's done, you can remove the main dash panel starting on the passenger side and carefully pulling the clips while moving to the driver's side. Now, be very careful not to bend the centerpiece of the dash and not to scratch any of the leather. Okay, now we're ready to remove the passenger speaker pod. First, detach the side panel, then remove the glove box from the Jeep. Using a compact 7mm ratchet, remove 4 screws from the side of the dash. Next, using the pry tool to access the trim panel cover from behind the grab bar. Use a 7mm to remove 3 screws. Once that's done, carefully unsnap the center panel and detach 2 harnesses to remove the panel. All right, now that that's done, remove 1 screw using a 7mm socket. Then use a 10mm socket to remove the 2 main bolts holding the grab bar in place. All right, now we're ready to remove the radio from the dash. Get started by unscrewing 4 7mm screws from the top and carefully unsnap the radio panel from the dash. Detach 2 harnesses from the back of the radio display. Next, we'll remove 4 7mm screws from the center vent and remove it from the dash. Now we're ready to remove the media panel from the center console. Remove 1 screw from the center and detach the panel. Now we recommend taking a photo before detaching the harnesses. The main harness requires unlatching a red pin. All right, now we're ready to remove the passenger lower dash. Using a 7mm socket, remove 6 screws, including 3 that are underneath. Once that's done, we'll move to the driver's side and detach the lower knee bolster. Then, remove 3 screws using a 7mm socket and pull back the steering wheel sheath. Next, use a panel puller to detach the side panel. Then, use a compact Phillips or 7mm to remove 6 screws from the side panel. Once that's done, remove 2 screws from the top section. Then, finally remove 3 screws from the inside and 1 underneath the steering wheel area. Now we'll detach the headlamp control panel and unclip 1 harness from it. Once that's done, you'll remove 1 hidden 7mm screw. All right, sweet. Now we're ready to remove the upper driver's vent. Use a 7mm socket to remove 2 screws and detach the panel, being careful not to scratch the leather. Now we're ready to disassemble the lower dash subframe to access the front speaker enclosure. To get started, you'll need to remove 3 screws that include 1 hidden under the steering wheel bezel. Now, we'll start removing the lower bracket assembly. This requires us to remove 3 7mm screws, 2 10mm screws, and finally 2 8mm screws on the left side. Next, we'll remove the satellite module using a 7mm socket. This will allow us to remove the driver's side pod. Now you'll need to remove 2 remaining 7mm screws. One is located on the top, the other is located on the side. Once you remove the speaker pod, detach 3 harnesses and remove the pod from the Jeep. Once you're done with that, repeat the process on the other side. Remember, there are 3 screws, 1 on the bottom, 1 on the side, and 1 on the top. Now we're ready to detach the tuner module in preparation for our T-harness. Using a 7mm socket, remove 4 screws holding the tuner module in place. Carefully pull out the tuner and allow it to rest in place where you can access the rear connectors. Okay, now let's cover the T-harness integration for your new Jeep audio system. These connectors are the input-output for the audio signal that attach to the factory wiring. These connectors are for the new DSP. The blue wire is used to turn on our new amplifiers. These connectors are for the OEM CAN bus. This harness is for base audio systems that connect to our new amplifiers through the T-harness. In our system, we're not using this. Our Jeep had a premium audio system, so we'll use this harness to connect our new amplifiers into the wiring where the factory amp resided. All right, now let's head on over to the Jeep to install that T-harness. First, remove the blue and green connectors from the tuner module. Attach both connectors to the corresponding female T-harness. Then plug the T-harness male connectors into the tuner module. Now we'll route our CAN bus harness to the glove box side and our DSP harness to the driver's side. Next, carefully tuck the harness into the dash and replace the tuner module. Once that's done, connect the CAN bus to any open slot in the green CAN bus bar. If all spots are occupied, the harness has a built-in pass-through. Okay, now we're ready to remove our front seat. Get started by removing the bolts using a T50 Torx. Protect the threshold and door panel with protective blankets and painter's tape. Disconnect any harnesses attached to the seat and carefully remove the seat from the vehicle. It's best to detach the headrest and move the steering wheel to its most upper position. All right, now let's take a moment and look at our pre-configured amplifier rack. Our new amp rack comes equipped with everything ready to go. It includes a pre-tuned 4-channel that runs all the speakers and a mono amp that runs the subwoofer. These are for the amplifier's front, rear, and sub signal input. And these are the speaker outputs. We also have the amplifier remote turn-on wire. These are the subwoofer output and B positive power connectors. This is the amplifier's ground cable that attaches to our primary grounding point. Our power cable comes with a pre-installed grommet that replaces the factory one. All right, here we are. We're now ready to install our amplifier rack. We'll position the amp rack in place, noting the mounting points. Find the mounting stud behind the carpet and make an L-shaped cut. Now, remove the mounting bolt attached to the harness channel using a 10mm socket. Next, use a 10mm to remove the primary grounding bolt. Now be sure this stud is free of excess paint, as it will need to make a solid grounding point. Position the amp rack in place on both mounting studs. Make sure the brackets align with the rear seat bolts. Then route the ground cable to the right side and secure it using a 10mm socket. Then secure the second mounting point under the carpet. Okay, now we're ready to route the amplifier harnesses. To get started, remove the small upper kick panel by pulling it out. Unclip the harness by unlocking the red pin. Then unlatch the back that holds the harness in place. Finally, remove the door hinge from the bracket. To remove the kick panel, first detach the harness from the side of the wall using a pry tool. Then remove a 10mm nut. Use the pry tool to detach several clips holding the panel in place. Push the panel near the door frame to decouple and remove it from the vehicle. Now we're ready to route the power wire. Remove the grommet next to the brake booster by twisting it off clockwise. If your vehicle's existing grommet is occupied with aftermarket accessories, you may need to score and remove the grommet from the harness and route it through the existing one. Route the power cable through the hole and into the engine compartment. If your install retains the grommet, twist it until it locks. Slightly tug on the harness to make sure it's seated properly. Now route the power cable under the washer fluid reservoir and across to the battery. Zip tie the harnesses next to the brake booster. Then from the blister pack, use 3 edge clips with zip ties inserted vertically. Secure the harness and cut the zip ties. All right guys, now we're ready to install the fuse holder assembly. Remove the fuse cover and use a 5/32 Allen to slightly loosen the set screw. Then insert needle nose pliers into the open end of the fuse block to remove the plastic insert. Now remove two 10mm bolts from the upper firewall that we'll use to secure the fuse holder. Once that's done, completely insert the ferrule into the fuse holder. Tighten the set screw and replace the fuse cover. Position the bracket and reinstall the two 10mm bolts to secure it in place. Note, some models like the Diesel or the 392 have different battery arrangements under the hood. In this case, you would remove the fuse holder from the bracket using an Allen wrench and manually mount it to the engine compartment. Now we're ready to install the digital signal processor. The DSP comes preloaded with a Jeep-specific tune, and we've included a USB extension for future servicing if needed. Here are the components needed to install the DSP. These are the mounting tabs on the top and the bottom. Now, if your vehicle is equipped with the factory amp, use the existing hardware. If not, we provided hardware for you. This cable was for the remote base knob. The USB extension cable attaches here. Before we install the DSP, make sure the input level switch is set to low. Now this section is for premium audio systems that have a factory amplifier. Now if you don't have one, skip to the next section. Locate the back of the amp and disconnect the Christmas tree harness that's in the way. Then remove three 8mm bolts, two on the top and one on the bottom. Then from underneath, disconnect three harnesses and remove the amplifier. Once that's done, route the remote level cable down the center dash and to the driver's side where the DSP will be located. Then check the length for connection to the base knob. Now orient the DSP and make all your input connections for CAN bus, input harness, and the mini USB cable. The mini USB cable will be accessible through the kick panel access door. Once you're done, flip the DSP around and make connections for the remote level and the output harness. Finally, connect the blue remote turn on, as this connection is very important for the amplifiers. Before mounting, you may need to unseat a factory harness that may block your installation. Position the DSP so you're facing the back. Then insert and secure two upper and one lower bracket bolts. If using the existing hardware from the factory amp, use the 8mm socket. If using the included hardware, use a 3/8" socket. Finally, clean up your wiring by routing them away from the steering wheel and securing them using the provided zip ties. Now we're ready to make our amplifier connections. For systems that don't have a factory amp, we use this harness for base audio systems and connect it to the T-harness behind the tuner module. In our system, we'll use the factory premium harness adapter to attach the small and large gray connectors to the mating ones we originally removed from the factory amp. Be careful when seating these connections because the pins are very thin. Now we'll connect this to our front and rear amp rack speaker outputs. Once connected, begin tucking the harness behind the factory panels. Use zip ties to clean up any wiring. Finally, we'll run the subwoofer output by routing the harness under the running board panels toward the rear cargo area, being careful to prevent the seatbelt from pinching it. Okay, now let's take a second to prep our new speaker pods. We need to relocate the module from the OEM to the new one using a 7mm socket. Okay, now let's install the driver's side speaker pod. We'll start by orienting the pod and connect the factory harness to the relocated module on the back. Then, connect the speaker harness. Install the pod using 3 7mm screws. Once you're done with that, repeat the process on the passenger side. All right, now we're ready to remove the factory tweeters and install our new ones. Start by removing the tweeter grills using a scoop pry tool. Use a microfiber cloth as not to damage any leather. Then use a 90-degree driver to remove 2 7mm screws. You may need a pick tool to detach the harness. Position the new tweeter, noting that the bezels are keyed to fit. First, connect the harness and use 2 screws to secure the tweeter in place. Once you're done, install the grill and repeat the process on the other side. All right, before we install our sub-level control, we need to first remove the existing 12-volt accessory housing. We need to detach 2 tabs from the inside of the 12-volt accessory. We've provided a tool to disengage these tabs. Once the tool is locked into place, use your thumb to press the inner sleeve out. Then use the tool to depress 3 tabs on the back side to remove the outer sleeve from the media panel. Now we're ready to install the remote level control. Start by orienting the remote control in the proper position. Use an 11mm to remove the center nut. Carefully remove the magnet registration plate, noting the alignment pins. Find the alignment tab and position the knob underneath the panel. Replace the magnet registration plate and secure using the 11mm nut. Once that's done, be sure to turn the potentiometer all the way down counterclockwise. Align the front knob with the indicator line and press it into place. Alright, now that we have that done, let's look at the 12-volt relocation kit. Remove the included template, 3/8" drill bit, and the 20mm hole saw from the kit. Position and score each location on the back of the glove box with the punch tool. Remove the template and drill your holes. Once that's done, refer to your template to determine where the hole saw should be used. Then drill your hole. Remove the hardware and prep the washers on the screws. Insert the 12-volt assembly into the glove box and use a 2.5mm Allen to secure the 3 screws. If you need an additional 12-volt line, we've included a T-harness for connection. Alright, let's head over to the Jeep and route the 12-volt T-harness toward the center dash and plug it into our factory harness. This will be plugged into the glove box during the final assembly. Before we install our subwoofer and finalize the installation, we'll reassemble the front seat and the dash area since we're familiar with each panel and the screws needed to secure it back together. We'll start by reattaching the panels in reverse order using the factory hardware. Now, you may need to scrub back through the video to reacquaint yourself with the process. When assembling the factory media accessory panel and the glove box, be sure to attach the RJ45 cable to the base level control and the 12-volt outlet harness to the glove box. Now we're ready to install our subwoofer. With our tailgate subwoofer kit, we won't be needing the rear trim panel insert. So let's flip over the trim panel and locate 2 indents in the plastic located here and here. We'll start with a 1/8 inch drill bit, then switch up to a 13mm that's included in the kit. These holes will be used for metal standoffs used to secure the subwoofer brackets. Next, let's look at the subwoofer bracket assembly. We have short bolts and standoffs for the top bracket and long versions for the bottom. We've also included 4 small screws to secure the enclosure to the bottom of the brackets. Prepare the bolts by inserting the locking washer first, then the smaller diameter flat washer. Note the bottom washers for the longer bolts are larger. This is the entire subwoofer assembly. We wanted to note the pigtail connects to a long extension harness that will attach to the amplifier's sub output we previously ran to the cargo area. The subwoofer will slide onto both brackets. Now once installed, the bracket slides into the receptacle where it can be secured to the bottom. Let's start by laying out the harness extension in the cargo area. Make connection to the amplifier's subwoofer output. Next, we'll reattach the trim panel to the tailgate by snapping it back into place. Starting on the top right bracket, insert the short screw into the bracket with the short standoff and hand thread it in place. Next, use the longer screw with the larger washer and standoff to secure it in place using the outer bracket notch with a 3/16 inch Allen. Once you're done with that, repeat the process on the other side. Make note, the long bottom screw utilizes the center hole on the left bracket. Finally, slide the subwoofer enclosure onto the brackets and make your subwoofer wiring connection. Use the 4 short screws to secure the bottom of the subwoofer enclosure using a 5/32 Allen. Alright, now we've completed the audio installation. You're ready to reinstall the remaining trim panels. Now, you may notice we've got some bare panels visible in the cargo area left by the old premium subwoofer enclosure. Please refer to this product details page for a list of carpet and panels needed at rockfordfosgate.com for your year and model of Jeep Wrangler. Next, make your battery connections. Connect the main battery negative and the start-stop terminals. Then, attach the positive terminal to the battery. Once done, connect the power cable from our fuse to the positive terminal using a 13mm socket. Now that we have voltage restored to the power seat, be sure to slide the seat up and secure the rear bolts back into place. All right, guys, now we're ready to initialize the audio system. Now, this is a very important step to ensure the DSP tune is properly loaded. We'll start by closing all the doors and press the key fob lock button twice to lock the vehicle. Let the vehicle sit uninterrupted for about 20 minutes. Be sure to take the key fob into your house away from the vehicle. Once the initialization is complete, you'll see the LED on the base level control will turn off. You can now unlock the vehicle and open the doors. All right, now if your system wasn't equipped with the factory amplifier, you'll need to initialize the audio system differently. Now this is very important to ensure the DSP tune is properly loaded. Now you'll only have 10 seconds of total time once you push the start-stop button to complete the program mode. With the key fob, lock and unlock the vehicle. Get in the vehicle and close the door. Make sure the emergency brake is off. With your foot on the brake, push the start-stop button twice. Push the emergency brake up, then push the brake down, then back up again. You'll hear one honk from the horn. Activate the left turn signal by pressing the lever down, at which you should hear the horn honk one time. This confirms the DSP tune has been loaded. The horn will chirp 2 more times to confirm the radio is initializing program sequence to low-level output mode. Do not open any doors or turn the vehicle off, as the radio will reset and cycle twice automatically. All right, now we're ready to test our new Jeep audio system. Power on the vehicle to accessory mode and turn the radio on. You can adjust the bass level to your preference. All right, as you can see, that installation took some time, but it came together really well, right? If you have any questions, please feel free to contact our technical support at 1-800-669-9899 or through our support website at rockfordfosgate.com.